Heya everyone, welcome back. Let me ask you something. What is your favorite character's theme song? A character theme is defined as a recurring musical motif that is associated with a specific character in a story. This could be a unique battle theme, or a hopeful melody, or something as simple as a 3-note chime. Whether it's a TV show, movie, or in our case a video game, having unique themes for different characters can help anchor their identity, personality, and emotional journey. Now let me ask you this. What if your favorite character's theme wasn't created for them specifically? What if there was a composition that was retroactively made into your favorite character's theme song? Well, this exact situation happened in my favorite game franchise of all time, Five Nights at Freddy's. I will always say that the score of FNAF has been one of its most underrated aspects. It was never anything groundbreaking, but even early on, the games knew when to keep things quiet and when to include eerie music to help set the tone. And today, I want to talk about what is arguably not only the most iconic and well-known track in the entire series, but the one that also had its cultural identity changed because of its inclusion in this game franchise. If you enjoy this video, please make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and leave a hype if you can. Doing this helps me out immensely and lets me know that you enjoy stuff like this. Comment down below what music tracks from FNAF are your favorites. I love seeing the varying choices. This also lets me know what other music tracks from Five Nights at Freddy's you'd like to see me cover next. There are definitely a few that I'm interested in talking about, but I always want to hear what you all want to see as well. But with all that out of the way, it's time to go back to where it all began, with the first Five Nights at Freddy's game. It's kind of a miracle that this game was a success when you really think about it. A $5 indie game fully made by only one man in the span of a few months launched a massive franchise that's still going to this day. It was a simple little game about taking on the role of a security guard at a local pizzeria known for its animatronic characters, and is focused on defending yourself against these anthropomorphic animatronic animals from coming into your security office to kill you. It had barely any advertisement, yet it was seen and played by millions thanks to Let's Players on YouTube. I'll always look back on the first game fondly for being the starting point of my favorite franchise, and not to brag, but in the 12 years since this game released, I've gotten pretty good at it. I mean, you could probably tell by how sweaty my gameplay is in all the videos I've put out so far. But that being said, there was one major complication with this game's development due to it being made only by one person. The music. Scott Cawthon, the sole developer of the first 7 mainline games in the franchise, has never been a musician. While he created the 3D models, programmed the game from the ground up, and designed the gameplay loop, music was the one thing he couldn't make on his own. Luckily, FNAF as a game relies heavily on sound cues, so music wasn't necessarily needed for the main meat of the game. All that was really needed was a track for the title screen, another for the ending screen, and some creepy ambiance to play during your nights at Freddy's. A few years later, Cawthon would go on to hire talented musicians like Leon Riskin to create original music for the franchise, but for FNAF 1, the music would completely comprise of stock tracks sourced from royalty-free websites. While the title screen got a pretty sinister sounding music track, which would be replaced with an original track composed by Riskin in all future re-releases, the nights themselves comprised mostly of eerie ambiance. Every so often, there's a chance for a creepy circus tune to play, but this is a rare scenario. And for most of the game, this is all you would really hear in terms of music. If you look at a surface level, FNAF 1 doesn't really have a music track that defines its identity, because there are so few tracks in the game itself. You won't find any music in this entry that stands out. That is, unless you lose power. If you don't conserve your power well and use your doors, lights, and cameras a bit too much, you could find your battery drained. And when it does, everything stops. Any animatronics that may have been at your doors are now gone. The flow of your gameplay comes to a screeching halt, but the stress that came with attempting to survive doesn't. If anything, it increases as you hear slow, heavy footsteps making their way toward you. And as you sit there in the dark, waiting for something to happen, you'll eventually see this. Freddy Fazbear himself has decided to pay you a visit, eerily staring through the darkness as the chirping notes of an old music box interrupt your silence. A dim light flickers and flashes on his face as the notes play, illuminating his empty stare. You wait for the inevitable as the song plays on, as he continues to stare at you through the inky blackness. Maybe he won't kill you after all. Maybe he just wanted to put on a little show for his new captive audience. Before you have a chance to get comfortable, the power goes out fully, blinding you completely. And then... you find yourself with a game over. This is by far the most iconic and well-known part of the first game, and is what I would argue made FNAF as a whole grow as popular as it did. This haunting build-up to Freddy's jump scare was something so unique at the time. Losing your power doesn't end your game right away. You have a chance to try and survive if you just wait it out, but that doesn't make the escalating feeling of both hope and fear any less intense as this sequence plays out. Because you are completely powerless, and I'm not just talking about your battery, though that does make the situation all the more darkly ironic. While there is a chance you can survive, there's nothing you can do to affect Freddy or try to delay the inevitable jump scare. While Freddy's song plays, you are praying that it goes on for as long as possible so you can maybe, just barely, squeak out a win and make it to 6 AM. There is legitimately no better feeling than barely getting that win at the last possible second, but there's also no worse feeling than dying so close to the finish line. And I think a part of what makes this build-up so good is the music box that Freddy plays as he stares at you through the dark doorway. Other than the menu track and the ambiance, this theme is the only other piece of music in this game. It was the first time a music box had been used in the franchise, and for the next few games, Scott Cawthon would utilize many different music box covers of classical songs to help score the different gameplay mechanics and minigames of the series. It's pretty impressive how perfectly this first music box was utilized. Having next to no music in the nights themselves made the sudden tune feel completely out of place in the best way possible. The music gives off a happy, joyous, almost triumphant tone that contrasts heavily with the situation the player finds themselves in. But that does beg the question, what is this song that Freddy's music box is playing? Like I said, the very few music tracks in this game are all stock music, so it had to come from somewhere. Well, as I explained to you the history of this song, we're going to have some help from someone who's becoming a regular on this series. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like for you all to welcome back pianist Botao to the channel once more, who will be doing a cover of Freddy's music box while we talk. The song that plays from Freddy's music box is known by many names. The Toreador song, March of the Toreadors, but it's known most famously as the Toreador March. Its original French name is Votre toast je per vous le rendre. In English, this roughly translates to I return your toast to you. The composer, Georges Bizet, composed the song to a libretto by Henri Milhac and Ludovic Khalifi. It was an aria, or music piece written for only one singer, written in 1875 for the French opera known as Carmen, one of the most popular and performed operas of all time. It's sung by the bullfighter Escamillo as he describes the various feelings and situations circulating around a bull ring, such as the pride, fame, and recognition that comes with victory, and the roaring and cheering from the onlooking crowd of spectators. The Toreador March is by far the most well-known piece of music from both this opera and Bizet's catalog of work. When separated from the darkness of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, the song itself feels pretty powerful. It gives off feelings of bravery, theatrical bravado, and a dramatic over-the-top sense of victory. It matches the vibe of a prideful bullfighter pretty well. But now that we know the full context of the song, it does make its tone clash all the more with the atmosphere of the game. Why is a song so triumphant sounding used in such a creepy sequence? Well, I think there's actually two reasons why this song was specifically picked, because while the tone of the song doesn't really fit for the player's situation, it does for your automaton attackers. Think about it like this: you have completely run out of power after a presumably long night of defending yourself from the mechanical monsters in your halls. You're defenseless against anything they may do to you now. Theoretically, any of them could just jump out and kill you. You shouldn't have to wait for Freddy to stomp over to your left door and play his little song to kill you. Any of the animatronics could jump out from your doors the moment you lose power and end your night right there. But this whole process isn't meant to be efficient, it's meant to be relished. Freddy is playing a grand song like the Toreador March because this is his victory song. He has won, he has beat you in this game of cat and mouse. And now he's savoring every moment of this process before he finally takes your life. Something that adds to this interpretation is how this same music box cover of the Toreador March is used for all of the ending screens in FNAF 1 once you finally beat the week and receive your check. It's the exact same cover with no alterations, but it doesn't feel nearly as intimidating as it did before. It feels warm, celebratory. Freddy's little victory song is now your victory song. While its use in the power outage sequence is meant to accentuate Freddy's win, now you're the one that gets to relish in the triumphant feeling. You're the one who's won. It's a pretty cool way of utilizing the same track in two similar contexts to give completely different feelings. Along with this, the Toreador March could have also been used due to the fate of its creator. You see, shortly after Carmen came out in 1875, Georges Bizet suddenly and unexpectedly passed away after the 33rd live performance. The opera would later go on to be his most well-known work, achieving international acclaim, but he was never alive to see his work admired. I believe that this little bit of real-life history may have a parallel to this song's use in FNAF 1, because Freddy also plays the Toreador March right before he kills Ralph, the phone guy. Ralph is a previous night guard that left behind a set of recorded messages from his final week on the job, and throughout our week they serve as a tutorial to the game and our first taste of the wider lore of the series. During the fourth night, we can hear the music box in his final call of the game right before it cuts to static and he presumably dies.
Yeah, I always wondered what was in all those empty heads back there, you know. Oh no.
While Ralph wasn't alive to see it, the advice he left behind aided us in surviving our nights, tipping us off to the different mechanics of the animatronics and giving us the first vestiges of lore in the series. Both him and Bizet left behind a legacy that would be appreciated by audiences long after their deaths. While this connection is a bit of a long shot, I do think the parallels are rather interesting. It hints that this specific track could have been chosen for more than its popularity, though that being said, it's not a popular song today for the same reason it was popular before the game came out. After its inclusion in the first Five Nights at Freddy's game, the Toreador March would gain a surge of widespread recognition. All of a sudden, a whole new generation knew about this old opera song from the 1800s. Several motifs of the track are present in a multitude of fan songs, and the song itself is constantly memed by both the community and mainstream audiences due to its connection to FNAF and Freddy himself. They even ended up referencing the most famous of these memes in the second Five Nights at Freddy's movie.
Oh. Maybe not.
The Toreador March is so often related to FNAF that even its official Wikipedia page notes its connection and importance to Five Nights at Freddy's. Its cultural identity has been changed forever. For all intents and purposes, this is no longer known as the most famous aria from Carmen. It's remembered for being Freddy Fazbear's theme song from Five Nights at Freddy's. And while I know there is an audience of people that may be sad that its importance to Carmen is being lost, I actually think that the song's newfound love is super important to its preservation. The sad reality is, opera as an art form has been dying for a long time. Production costs of the shows are continuing to rise, and the age of streaming has given audiences so many new options for entertainment without having to leave their homes. People are not going to the opera like they used to. Its use in FNAF and modern identity as Freddy Fazbear's theme gave the Toreador March a new life outside of the opera. A whole new generation now knows about this song, and maybe some of them will even seek out a performance of Carmen specifically to hear it in person. And even if they don't, the fact that the song itself is preserved in pop culture for the foreseeable future is really cool, and it's all owed to the funny jump scare bear game. However, its use in the power outage sequence and the ending screens are not the only times the song is utilized in the first game. While it's most well known for the power outage sequence, it's also played while Freddy is in the kitchen. Since the camera has no visuals, the song is used as an indicator that Freddy is occupying this area. This is also the only time in the game that the music box serves a deeper gameplay purpose, which is pretty cool. Outside of the first FNAF game, the song would continue to pop up later in the series. In Ultimate Custom Night, Freddy will play a snippet of the Toreador March in place of a voice line after he kills you. It's a small inclusion, but considering this is the last game from the original Click Team era, I'm glad that the theme popped up at least once more. The music box would be reused in Five Nights at Freddy's VR Help Wanted. Since the game includes a remake of FNAF 1, it functions the same in those nights as it did in the original game. A snippet of the song also plays when you open up a present box after completing a minigame as well. The song is also reused in Five Nights at Freddy's AR Special Delivery. When Freddy attacks the player, he will every so often play the song as he stomps around, looking for a chance to attack. This is a bit of a smaller inclusion, but I'm glad it made it into the mobile game while it was still around. In terms of the movies, the Toreador March would also be featured throughout most of the trailers leading up to the first film's release. Though to the disappointment of myself and many fans, it never actually popped up in the film itself. Thankfully, this is remedied immediately at the beginning of the second film, as the song plays while William Afton himself counts us down to the movie's start.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
He also whistles a bit of it while he washes his hands at the start of the film. In terms of original music, Leon Riskin would weave familiar motifs of the Toreador March into many future tracks. For example, you can hear the first few notes in the track used for Sister Location's epilogue, Demolition Inevitable. In Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, the theme used for the Duck Pond, Lemonade Clown, and Fruit Punch Clown minigames is a completely remade version of the Toreador March named Minor Corrosion of the Bizet. Of course, the Bizet portion of the name is in direct reference to the original composer, Georges Bizet. Finally, the Toreador March's main motif would also come back in Exit Through the Gift Shop from Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic. It's played prominently during the second welcome show sequence and during the ad for Murray's Costume Manor. And as of right now, these are all the appearances of this familiar theme in the series. It's a bit funny that it doesn't appear in a good chunk of the games despite it being the theme song of the face of the franchise. But that does make when it does pop up feel a bit more special. That being said, I don't think that any future appearance it may have will ever top this first one. I really love the power outage sequence. This music box, this flickering light, this creepy stare before your inevitable death. It really made Freddy Fazbear feel like the boss of this game. For a game series known as Five Nights at Freddy's, Freddy himself isn't really a main threat a lot of the time. After FNAF 3 and the introduction of Springtrap, the original Freddy Fazbear has been in the background of the story. His future variants are mostly secondary antagonists, if they're even that. It makes sense why though, as Freddy, like the other animatronics, are all children's souls bound to these plush suits. They're victims that have been tragically turned into these monsters, so it makes sense that later media focuses on them being Afton's victims first and foremost. But that's what makes Freddy in the first game feel so special. This is truly the only game where he feels like the main threat. He's very difficult to deal with during the nights themselves, and he's the one who takes you out once you lose all of your power. The original animatronics never had much when it comes to characterization. Half of them still don't even have a canon voice actor. But now that we know more about the history of the Toreador March, I think it actually goes hand in hand with giving Freddy just a bit more character. We know now that he's a showman. He puts on a performance and forces you to watch as he builds up to your inevitable death. He's tenacious and ferocious in his own way. The characterization fits very well for the lead singer of an animatronic band, a robot that's made for the sole intention of entertainment and having everyone's eyes focused on him. And in a poetic way, Freddy's influence also helped this song find a new audience. The Toreador March and how it's perceived has been changed forever thanks to its inclusion in FNAF. What used to be remembered as a grand, over-the-top victory song is now also viewed as a chilling, eerie tune that pierces through the darkness of whatever setting it may be in. The FNAF franchise and the song itself have both been influenced by each other, and now they are forever intertwined. I don't know when we'll see this familiar aria pop up next, but what I do know is that I will be very excited to hear it when it does. Because, like Freddy Fazbear himself, our lives have all been changed, even if it's in a small way, because of it. Thank you all so much for watching. I'd like to give a special thank you to Botao for coming back once more to do a cover of the Toreador March, aka Freddy's Music Box. He did a great job as always. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and drop a hype if you can. It lets me know that you want to see more like this. Speaking of which, thank you all so much for 15,000 subscribers. I can't believe how much this channel has grown. I'm really grateful you all decided to stick around and continue watching me. Let's strive to hit 20k next. Comment down below what your favorite song from the FNAF soundtracks are. I'd really love to see what you like. And if you made it this far, comment if you have a specific track from the soundtracks of the Five Nights at Freddy's films that you really love. I honestly think both of the films have a really underrated soundtrack. The Newton brothers did a great job. I'm curious to see what the consensus is, and who knows, maybe I can analyze one of the movie's themes. With that all being said, I'm gonna head out for now and work on some other great stuff for you all. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all later. Bye bye!
Don't pee on the floor, use the Commodore. Yeah, la 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 la.